Do we have a quorum at this point or no?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Okay, 4. Okay.
Actually, yeah, we have 5. So
Oh, and I saw Pat come on.
Okay, 6 of you. Just having a little trouble with the live stream, so I'm just going to give it another minute, and if it doesn't work, we are recording, so we'll be able to just proceed with that. I'll just give it 10 more seconds. It looks like it's setting up.
yeah, we could just send you to shorthand school and you could do everything by hand.
Oh, make her work a little easier, will you?
It's a lot easier writing the minutes from these recorded ones than trying to use the little audio device.
I know. I found that to be true with Barnstable. It's easy to get. It's nice to be able to go back and listen to it and look at it and see what was this person's reaction when this was said. I can even put in some feeling.
Okay, so we can just go for it. I don't think that the live feed is working, but we're recording and we have a quorum, so you can go ahead. Do you want me to start with the script?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So the June 18th, 2020 meeting of the Yarmouth Conservation Commission is about to be convened. As a precautionary measure to reduce the spread of coronavirus, all town buildings are closed to the public. Therefore, this meeting will be held by remote participation. My name is Kelly Grant and I'll be moderating participation for this meeting. I will now turn it over to the chair of the meeting.
My name is Ed Hoops and I'm the chairman of the Yarmouth Conservation Commission. I will begin by taking a roll call for quorum. See, David Bernstein.
Present.
Rick Bishop is not here yet. Tom Durkin.
Here.
Ed Hoops is here. Paul Huggins.
Here.
Ellie Lawrence.
Here.
Patricia Mulhern.
Yeah.
Kelly Grant.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a quorum of 6 individuals, commissioners and the conservation administrator. I will now turn it back over to the moderator and Kelly.
Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the Governor's March 23rd, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Yarmouth Conservation Commission is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access and participate in the proceedings as provided for in the order. Applicants can use the raise hand button or press *9 on their phone to identify themselves to the chair. The meeting host will unmute applicants when they're called upon to speak. During the portion of the hearing designated for public comment, the chair or moderator will ask who in the audience has any public comments or questions. Members of the public can use the raise hand button or press *9 on their phone to identify themselves to the chair. The meeting host will unmute members of the public when they're called upon to speak. All participants are asked to identify themselves by first and last name and affiliation for the public record before speaking. All votes must be roll call votes. After a motion is made and there is a second, the chair will ask the moderator to take the roll call vote. The moderator will report the roll call vote. If it appears the meeting cannot or should not proceed, then the moderator will recommend that the chair request to continue the hearing to a later date and time and/or until public meetings can resume normally. I will now hand the meeting back to the chair. You're muted, Ed.
This is the first time I've ever done this, so I'm sorry. I will call the Yarmouth Conservation Commission meeting for Thursday, June 18th, 2020 to order. First order of business is a request for determination of applicability continued from 5/7, 5/21, 6/4, 2020. Grant Edith's Neighborhood Association and Edith's Road, South Yarmouth, replacement in kind of 10 12-inch pilings associated with the licensed pier in Bass River. Kelly, did we have Waterways? Did they go last night or?
For Aunt Edith's, we weren't waiting on Waterways. We were waiting on an updated application from the applicant, from Down Cape Engineering, and I haven't heard anything more from them.
Okay,
I don't see him in the audience.
I don't see anybody there. All right,
You could
so
raise your hand if you are there, but I guess the only option is to continue again.
all right, so could I have a motion to continue to Kelly? It's July
2nd.
So moved. David?
David, thank you.
Second,
There's
Ellie.
Ellie seconded. Kelly, could you call the roll, please?
Bishop? Oh, he's not here. Durkin?
Aye.
Bernstein?
Aye.
Lawrence?
Sorry, aye.
Oops.
Aye.
Huggins?
Aye.
Mulhern?
Aye.
And that carries 6-0. One absent. And that's to continue to July 2nd.
Okay, so we're all set with that. Next order of business is a notice of intent continued from 5/7, 5/21, and 6/4, 2020 for SE 83-2229, Robert J. and Rita M. Davis, 177 River Street, South Yarmouth, to maintain 2 existing 10 by 20 foot floats in place of the 6 by 10 foot permitted floats and 1 existing additional float pile. All right, who do we have here for this one?
We have a consultant, John O'Day, is in the audience. I have allowed him to speak now if he wants to unmute himself.
Okay, hi, John.
Good afternoon, everybody. John O'Day from Sullivan Engineering Consulting. I'm representing the applicant who's also logged into this meeting, and I'm sure will be interested in being a part of the discussion. But this is an existing pier, ramp, and float in the river. It was built in the 90s. The property owner has owned it since around 1998. As far as we can tell, and as far as even some photographs that they've provided indicate that the pier has existed as it does today since they purchased it. But it has come to their attention through an enforcement notice from the commission that the floats were not in compliance. The floats as they exist, our plan calls them 10 by 20 floats. We did our plan during the winter when they weren't in yet. It ends up they are only 8 by 20 foot floats as they exist today, so that needs a correction. There are 3 piles that hold it in place. What was permitted was 2 piles and 2 6 by 10 floats. There was, in addition, at one point, a jet ski float and a little connection to it, but when the violation went out, those were pretty much immediately removed. We've been trying to stay in contact with the commission staff to get to a point that we are tonight of trying to resolve this. We did finally make it to Waterways last night. They had a meeting. They would prefer that we get closer to what is the commission's today's float square footage, which I guess is 200 square feet. They discussed the possibility of maybe a little bit of flexibility given the history here and given the boat that's at this float and has been at this float for over 10 years. We talked about maybe 2 6 by 18s, which might require 1 additional tie-off pile to make that all work. And so that would be, I think, 214 square feet. Obviously, the property, I think it's 214 if I did that math. Two 6 by 16s or 6 by 18s. I'm sorry, is what was discussed last night.
Right. Okay.
So that's 216 square feet if we did that. Obviously, the property owner would rather keep what they have, but they understand that, and even said last night that we're in a place where he's coming to with his hat in his hand. Kind of a unique situation, not unique in that floats grow, but this has been there certainly a long time, and seems to predate even his ownership. So with that, we did provide a copy of an old photograph to Kelly today. We had mentioned it in our notice of intent, but I'm not sure that it made it into the production mode of that. But there is an old photograph that shows Bob's children when they were young at that pier, at the floats, which were not new at that time. We can see moss on them and nothing new about it. So I think unless
And those floats, just to be clear, that was a total of 42 feet that were there at the time that we had the house, when we first put the house in. There were 3 14-foot structures there at that time. It's 40 feet now, which is 2 20-foot floats. At the time we purchased the house, there were 3 floats sitting there, and the photograph that John's referring to was the first summer that we owned the house, which was the summer of 1998. The Waterways Commission was constructed last night and asked that Ellie, you'd have to, I don't know what it was, if it was a resolution or a recommendation, or I defer to you to tell me officially what the discussion concluded with, but
Well, the Waterways is more of an advisory board, and it was a recommendation to shorten it to get closer to our regulations through the Wetlands Protection Act and our town code.
right. I mean, I'd only say, and of course, everyone that comes before you says this, we've been here now in this home for 22 years. It's not a reason to approve anything. We've been great stewards here of the river. We're, as many families are, but founding members of the Friends of Bass River. We're trying to do the right thing here all along. This came as a complete surprise to us. At the time of the notice, I reached out to Kelly immediately on the notice. As John O'Day pointed out, I instantly, with a matter of, with a couple of days, had that jet ski float removed, and it's not been back on the water since. And what sits there now, with Kelly's permission, the temporary permission, the structures that have been there now for countless years, the 2 8x20s.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Davis, and thanks, John. So you're looking to, this is the configuration that we got, John, is the one where we have the sort of like the L and a smaller version of the 2 existing floats. Is that correct?
that's what the recommendation of the Waterways was, and they were, I think, amenable to the idea of 1 extra tie-off pile if it was needed to accomplish that shortening, because there's not a pile at the most pier end of that float configuration. So they thought that maybe 4 piles with a 6 by 36.
6 by 18, 2 6 by 18s with 2 piles for each was what we were discussing yesterday.
Okay. And what size boat do you have have you been tying up there?
Yeah, it's a 43-foot boat with outboard engines, so it extends to about 47 feet.
Okay. All right. I'll turn it over to the commission. Or any questions amongst the commissioners?
Well,
Nobody has any? Go ahead, Ellie.
most of my remarks were made yesterday on the Waterways, is to try and shorten it. I know he has a larger boat, but you can easily tie it up with it overhanging on both ends. I would like to, as I said last night, have it shortened to the 6 by 18, which would give them 36 feet. And yes, it is over 200, but it does shorten it quite a bit because we will have another one, I am sure, coming up farther down the river. And I'm afraid if we just let this go, we're going to have to let all the ones that are out of uh, the regulations, we'll just have to let them all go. So it does set a precedence.
So you're suggesting the 6 by 36, is that right?
Yeah, that's what Waterways pretty much agreed on last night. Yes.
Okay. Anybody else in the commission? I can only see like 3 of you folks, so you have to either raise your hand or make noise if you want me to call on you.
Well, this is David.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
Just trying to get all these numbers in my head. So Ellie is talking about a 6 by 36. What are they asking again for?
We were asking for the existing floats, which are the 8 by 20s that are there.
10 by 20s.
I'm sorry, no, they're 8 by 20s.
8 by.
If it says by 10 by 20s, it's not accurate. As John said, he wrote that up over the winter. The floats are actually 8 by 20s. The ones that are there today. Hey, I mean, I'm grateful for anything that we do here. I understand where it is and appreciate the predicament you're in, as I explained to Waterways last night. I have concerns about the boat fitting on the 36, but if I have no choice, I'll find a way to make it work. I mean, it's a, as I said, 43-foot boat with 4-foot overhang that's been there for 11 years. And as I mentioned, and this isn't a reason for you to allow it. I get that. I'm not trying to be naive. And the reason I produced that photograph from the summer we bought, and you know, shame on us, I guess, for not knowing, but we had 3 14-foot floats at the time we came into this home. And the only thing I can produce to prove that is the photograph I mentioned that we produced that shows those weren't new floats at that point in time. They were shortened to 40 feet in 2 floats. I don't know exactly when, some years later, because the installer thought that it was just an easier configuration than the 3 floats. I don't recall the details of that, but it actually came down by 2 feet from what I thought I had when I bought this home.
So so you're coming down significantly. I understand that from what was there and when you bought it. I get that. I think I would tend to agree with Waterways on this situation where there's 6 by 36. You're still, I mean, a 43-foot boat over 36 feet of float. I don't think that's necessarily a bad ratio. If Waterways was willing to go with that extra pile, I don't think that's an issue either. I'd rather just see you have the pile. It'll give extra stability to the float system. Then it should certainly have no issues in terms of the holding that size boat.
Mr. Van Hoen, I don't know if he's on the line with us as well, telephoned me this morning. And if he's on the line, he could let him tell this. I didn't call him. He phoned me this morning, just asking, and I don't know the answer to this question, to say, was there any way, and it may not change your view of it, but I mean, I understand that there's always suspicion about, everyone says this was there and it's not my fault, and I get that, but asked if there was any Google photos or anything that would support what I'm referring to, that go back to that time. I was not able to find anything. I don't know if you have access to any other things, but that was his suggestion as a basis of the 8 by 20s, but and why they should stay. My concern on the boat is, and I don't know if those exist or not, but my concern on the length is, you're right about the 36-43, but there's what we estimate. I don't know the real number. I guess I could have measured it today, but with Mr. Van Hoen and I last night, it's probably 4-foot overhang on the engine. So you're really dealing 47 on 36 is the practical length of that boat that overhangs, which becomes a lot. Will it work? I'll make it work. But 8 by 20 sure makes, I think, life a heck of a lot easier for maintaining that boat and getting it on there and keeping it on there.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead.
I would tend to agree with the findings of the waterways. You know, it's in my opinion that the additional piling will resolve this because it's going to stiffen the configuration pretty dramatically with one more piling. So I wouldn't have any concern at all about it working for that size boat.
Yeah, I think, I mean, in total length of float, you're dropping 4 feet from 40 feet proposed to
36.
36. So I don't see by adding one pile, I don't see that, and it brings it closer to the regulation. I understand it was there. You know, I think the board is being, you know, we have this 200 square foot
Regulation.
limit, and so I appreciate that you're trying to reduce that as best you can. I think this would work.
Well, I
what we've been
understand.
suggesting.
I understand that if the commission is supportive of it, I'll make it work. So we had I won't belabor it because we had a lengthy discussion last night and Ellie was clear in her position and I said the same to Waterways. I'll make it work. And if the commission's supportive, I'll make that work.
Okay, all right, thank you. Anybody else in the commission have any comments?
So will they come before us with a new plan? Should we continue this?
I would be willing. I mean, I'll ask Kelly her opinion on it as well. But if Kelly's comfortable just accepting based on, and she knows what we're looking for, so she's good with that. I would say go ahead and clear it tonight. But if Kelly is uncomfortable with that, then we'll continue it for a revised plan, and we won't take any further testimony. We'll just literally have it on the next agenda to clear it off and close it out. So, Kelly, you have any thoughts?
No, I'm supportive of that. I think as long as the revised measurement is included in the motion so that it's clear that a updated plan needs to be provided to me before I issue the order of conditions, then I'd be comfortable with that. And I just ask also that you include a time frame for when that work would take place to revise the float size.
Sure, that's fair. I don't know. I haven't spoken to a dock builder and I don't know what I'm dealing with this time of year, but obviously I want to do it. So maybe I just ask for you guys. I don't know what I'm going to find. I'm going to find as to how quickly I'm going to be able to get this done. But I defer to what your expert opinions think is reasonable, but I don't want to be in a position where I'm in violation because I can't get the work done. So I guess I'm babbling here a little bit because I don't know what the right answer is.
Right, so let's just. I mean, again, I don't know. I would assume that people are, the companies are all kind of backlogged at this point, but I mean, we can put a date certain, and if it looks like that there's just no way they can get to it, then we can extend it. We can have Kelly extend that, but and the idea is
by no later than the next season, but within
right
the season if it can be accomplished.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should aim for this season.
And
we'll see what the company has to say, what the marine companies have to say in terms of time, and if they can do that, that's great. But I want to see an honest effort at having it done this season before the close of this season. And if it honestly can't be done, then you've got it for one more. You essentially have it for one more season. But starting next year, then we would expect the new configuration to be met and maintained.
That's very, very reasonable and very fair.
Anybody else with the commission? Kelly, are you good with that?
I'm good with that.
All right. Anybody in the audience have any comments or questions or concerns about this project? If not, if so, raise your hand electronically, please.
I don't see any raised hands at the
Seeing
moment.
none. Would somebody like to make a motion?
Oh.
Ellie?
I think Tom
Oh,
had just raised
no.
his hand.
I thought Ed was calling for.
Oh,
approval.
sorry. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was about to call. I was just about to call for a motion. Would somebody like to make a motion?
Well, I make a motion that we let Kelly accept the plans for a 6x2, 6x18 floats with a proposal of an additional piling along with the third one that is not regulation. And to have it done within this season if possible, if not by next season.
Second,
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
second,
Rick seconded. Kelly, would you call the roll, please?
Bishop,
aye.
Durkin,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Lawrence,
Aye.
Hoops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Thanks to all of you. Just a question, if I can find someone right now that's doing this, do I need to submit something to Kelly before construction would begin? Or do I need to get, I just don't know procedurally. I don't know I'm going to find until I start making some calls here.
Yeah, if you would, make a concerted effort to contact the different marine agencies or marine organizations to do the work, and do that in a timely manner. To do it as quickly as you can.
I will
And
do
then
that.
report back.
My only
Report
question-
those findings back to Kelly.
Yeah, so-
My question is, before construction begins, do I owe, I know you said something about a drawing. Do I have to do anything?
So we'll need to receive the updated plan before I can issue the order of conditions. And then once the order of conditions is issued, you'll be able to go ahead and do a on-site pre-construction meeting with me and the contractor, and then you'll be okay to proceed from there.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Well, I thank everyone for their understanding, cooperation, and wish you all a great night.
Okay, thank you.
Be well.
Next order of business. So we're moving into enforcement issues. The first enforcement hearing is Red Jacket Beach Limited Partnership, 28 South Shore Drive, South Yarmouth, unpermitted activity on coastal beach. So this was one
I'm
of the
just-
sites that had the front end loader moving. Is that correct?
I've just allowed Jamie Vieira in the audience to speak. He'll just need to unmute himself.
Okay, so let's go through discussion first.
So yes, this was, I've put these three properties together. Well, I guess there's four properties together because two of them were under one order of conditions. And this is the properties where some work was carried out prior to the permits being issued, and for work that was slightly different to what was being approved. So basically, from my discussions on site with staff, they had used an excavator to move sand from some parts of the beach to other parts of the beach. So there's a couple of reasons from what I understand. Firstly, to just remove areas of accumulation and spread that back out over the beach. Generally, and to improve access where those sands are accumulating around stairs and utility sheds and things like that. And the other reason was that some of the sand was moved and put in the area of the proposed dune reconstruction. And I guess part of that was to save the need to bring in additional material to the beach. So that was from my conversation on site, and I think additionally there was some beach cleaning that took place at that point given the conditions out there. So I met with Christian Davenport, who is going to be maintaining these beaches parcels moving forward under the permits, and talked to him about keeping a more open dialogue between myself and himself with regard to any pre-season work that they feel the need to do in terms of moving sand. I know I have that kind of arrangement with the town where sand needs to be moved away from stairs and benches and things like that, then we'll run through a list of that type of work at the beginning of the season, but it's always kept to a bare minimum and away from any areas of accumulating like dune material. So I feel like from the discussions that we've had, we're on the same page now in terms of what the expectation is and of the work that is done there pre-season. Obviously, you know, that doesn't correct the fact that this work was done while we were trying to permit the work on the property, so that's a little bit of a problem. But I feel like we're in a good place moving forward in terms of a mutual understanding of what's expected on the site, and that includes allowing sand to build up around the perimeter of the beaches and the perimeter of the properties, and to allow vegetation to establish in those areas, because it is so important to storm damage prevention for both these properties and the surrounding properties. So they should always be maintaining clearance off those areas where sand does accumulate, and just allowing it to do that, and really just limiting, you know, the activity to the very surface raking during the season, and to clearing areas around like access points to you know, stairways and the shed they have there. So that's my not so brief summary. And Jamie is available in the audience.
Okay, so before we go to Jamie, we'll, and does the commission, anybody on the commission have any questions, concerns, comments?
Ed?
Tom is there.
I see some. Tom, okay, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, can you clarify for me? I know Jamie is in the audience and I appreciate that. But Kelly said, you said that you were dealing with Mr. Davenport rather than Jamie.
Yes, I think Christian is in
Who's
charge of.
the corporate representative for this.
So Christian Davenport is in charge of, correct me if I'm wrong, Jamie, but in charge of like the operations of this. So he is the person responsible for the work being carried out. So that I met with him for the pre-construction visits for the permits that we've just issued, but we also talked about the work that had taken place before the permits were issued, because he, I think, is responsible for the operations in terms of managing these beaches.
I see. And what's Jamie's position in this?
I think Jamie is a corporate representative of
Mr.
the
Davenport.
resorts. That's right.
Thank you.
Okay,
And
Paul?
Paul,
Yeah, you talk about the some of the work. It sounded like clearing sand away from stairs and so on and so forth. But I don't know if you could flip through some pictures showing some of the work. There was one, I think, towards the end where there was a tremendous. It looked like a lot of work done, more so than like right here. Yeah, this where you see the tracks in the upper right hand picture. Kind of going down the beach and so on. That looks like a heck of a lot more to me than just clearing a little bit of sand from around the stairs. So
yeah, so there was a large amount of sand moved from so this area here, and you can see this is the before and the after shots from
Yeah.
slightly different angles. So you can see these areas here were moved, and then the area around the shed here. And this is another angle of that shed. So you can see we've lost a lot of sediment here, and a lot of it was moved. I'll just flip back to, was moved from here over to this area where the proposed dune reconstruction was. But yes, a general leveling out of the beach. So it sort of took those you know, slopes off the perimeter of the property and brought it in, moved it out across the beach. Seems to be the work that took place. So you can see that's that area there where the loader was.
So a couple other things. So is this the kind of work that they've done on these beaches? The owners of the properties have done on the beaches in the past on a regular basis, and now they've discovered that maybe it's not appropriate to do it. And also just the whole notion of bringing that machinery on the beach. Again, is this something that was customarily done? If it wasn't and they did it, then, you know, it strikes me as a bit flagrant in terms of disregarding what should be known as the requirements of the town and the Conservation Commission when this type of property is owned and maintained, that there's a need to work with the Conservation Commission. So that I'm sure that was the explanation, that a little bit of sand was kind of moved around, but it seemed a little bit more than that to me. And I just wondered am I exaggerating it as I think about it?
So Jamie has his hand raised. He's probably better able to answer that than myself.
Yeah, thank
Sure. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Huggins, to answer your question directly, this was kind of, I'll use the word, kind of standard operating procedure under the permits that had been obtained since back in 2001. And I understand even predated permitting for, years before that. So this was not out of the norm in terms of how and what was done. It was merely moving sand, nothing more than that. I will acknowledge, we jumped the gun on this one, and I'm not going to try to get around that in any way, shape, or form of saying that it was done when it was done. I think that Kelly encapsulated her discussions with Christian, who's the point person on this going forward. They'll keep the open line of communication and make sure something like this doesn't happen again. But this was not out of the norm as to how beach maintenance and yearly activities were done each and every year.
Thank you.
Can I ask a couple of points? One is that, if I remember correctly, the permit was only good till 2018 and lapsed. And that bothers me, that a corporation could let a permit that's as important as this lapse. So even if they had been doing the work for years, things change from decade to decade of what is permitted. And that's why I assume we have a permit and lapsed of a permit. So bothered me that the permit lapsed. I think that's something that Paul mentioned too. And when I was out there watching the movement back, I think it was the beginning, the Red Jacket, it's at 28 South Shore, that machine was moving totally across from one end of the beach to the other and moving things rather rapidly. So I just wanted to make that statement. It wasn't a small area, 28. I don't know if there are any pictures from 28, Kelly, but so those are three comments I would have made. I don't think corporations should let permit lapse, even if they've had one for over and over and over again. That's the point of having time on the permit. There was a lot of movement at 28, and I assume what's expected to save a beach has changed from 1990s to 2000s to 2020. That's it for me.
Anybody else in the commission?
Yeah, I do have a question on this, where it says the area of proposed dune reconstruction. Where exactly is that in relation to the other motels? Because they're moving dunes that are forming naturally over the winter and moving it to an area where they want a dune instead of where it's going to grow. I'm sort of confused on that.
So the idea, so I think what the intention was that when this is the dune that was being reconstructed under the permit that we just issued. So I thought rather than bringing in new sand, they would just move sand there, which I didn't think was the intention. I thought new material would be brought in to build that dune. So yeah, you're right. The areas of dune that are building up elsewhere on the property definitely need to be allowed to build up in other areas of the property. So they shouldn't be a source of material that can be moved to another part of the beach or another property, because they're building up protection in other areas. So I was surprised. I didn't expect to see that they were going to move sand within the system to that area. I thought that was going to be new material that was brought in to build that dune.
Okay, thank you, Kelly.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, so where does the commission want to go with this then? How do we resolve the issues? I mean, are you going to require, Kelly, do you want to, I assume for this one that we're seeing right now, that's on the screen right now for Blue Water and Edges Sea, considering that they're proposing dune construction or reconstruction, that we'd want to see some sort of a restoration plan that calls this out with a little bit more detail. Is that right?
Well, it's really up to you guys how you want to move forward from here. I mean, I guess the most important part for me is that everyone understands from here on out that we don't touch the sand that builds up in the off season. So for me, moving forward, that's really important. Like, we let it accumulate. But then there is, like, how do you want to address what has happened here? Do you want those areas where sand was moved? Do you want sand replaced in those areas? And now I don't see any point in moving the sand that was put in the proposed June reconstruction area, because that's just, we're going to be putting sand back there. But do you want to see sand added to those other areas where it was removed from? So, I mean, part of me is like, it'll accumulate again in these other areas, so we could just move forward and let nature do its thing and let it do its thing. Or you could ask that the nourishment that's been permitted be supplemented to increase the elevation in those areas where sand was lost. Bearing in mind that there is going to have to be a certain level of flexibility, which is why I wanted to keep this open dialogue with them, that there are areas like the access to the shed and the stairways, which they are going to have to do some seasonal clearing around. Like, I have the same discussion with the town every year in terms of their benches and their steps, that there are limited areas where they are allowed to move the sand from and to at the beginning of each season. But that's sort of, a moving forward.
I mean,
I'd like to comment, Ed.
yeah, go ahead, Tom.
I agree very much with Kelly, and I would prefer not to see any more damage inflicted on this beach. I think enough has been done to it so far. And I would just like to see people leave it alone, let nature take its course for the next season or two, and perhaps we'll look at it then. Thank you.
I agree with that, Tom and Kelly. I think, I wish people would just keep their hands off it and stop messing around with this as much.
Ed, if I may,
Yeah, go ahead.
Part of this idea was to rake the beach and replenish it as needed. And what they're doing is they're moving the sand around that they may need to replenish anyways, because they're moving it from where it was supposed to be. Is that going to be a future thing? Should we, I don't know. It's, the sand's accumulating there and they're asking us to be able to replenish the beach as they wish. So I don't know. I don't know where this is going.
Well, not as they wish, but I mean, they've got constraints under the order of conditions for the nourishment. So as long as they stay within we've already issued the order of conditions for the nourishment for the different properties. But I would say I'm in agreement with what everybody's saying, is that you don't need to be doing these wholesale movements of sand. Certainly not anywhere along which you certainly should be taking sand wherever you want to put it and taking it from wherever you want to take it from. I mean, those two activities under normal circumstances would require a full-blown notice of intent, and it would require a whole variety of additional background information, as well as contours and engineered plans and everything. To just have somebody go out and do it, that's not right. And so I think as long as Kelly is, I think we've sufficiently put it across to them that they are not supposed to be doing any further work like this, save for the minor activities of moving sand away from the sheds and things like that. But that should also be done and cleared with Kelly beforehand, before they do it. So it should be have some sort of an annual meeting at the beginning of the season to address those sorts of situations, and certainly leave everything else off. The blue water is still this is the place where we had a significant dune that has disappeared, and so we see this, we keep going back to this proposed dune reconstruction, but I think we need to see something that's going to show what they plan to do, other than just circle the spot and say, oh, throw the stand in here when you want. So I think with that, I'd like to see some sort of restoration plan involving a little bit more specific theory or more specific requirements as to what they're planning on doing for building the dune there. That's really my only real thing. Everywhere else, I think, is again, if we have the understanding that they're not going to be, it's a different decade now. Just because we did it back 25, 30 years ago doesn't mean we do it now. We're on the same page now with that. And that's, I'm fine with that for the rest of the properties. It's just, I think with that dune restoration, they need to provide something a little bit clearer as to what exactly it is that they're going to do.
And that dune restoration was, the additional information was provided as part of the permitting for the last meeting. For the sequence and how they were going to do that. And I've just put some photos up, which.
So we're counting that as the plan then?
So the plan that we have and the supplemental information is the restoration per what was permitted under those plans. So it's that area of dune construction. And these are the photos where they've put the sand fencing up as per the requirement of that order. The bottom one here is the larger dune area, and then this is the dune that was to be protected. And they are planning to come back in the fall to build the dune up and get it staked by Bob to make sure that it meets the height requirements per the plan and to get the vegetation in there, and once they can plant the beach vegetation. Mm-hmm. So we did receive that supplemental information in terms of the dune reconstruction as part of the order of conditions that was issued at the last meeting. It was just whether you wanted any other restoration in order to address the violation of the sand that was moved from the other areas of the beach, I guess.
Ed?
And Paul has his hand raised.
Ed, I just wonder, if there's precedent in this type of case for any owners along the shore with property like this, when they bring machinery on the beach and so on. Isn't there a precedent that would require a fine in this instance? I know we're talking about never do it again, basically. It's just so surprising that the owners of this property wouldn't know that or think that, well, we've always done it, therefore we don't have to touch base with the Conservation Commission on this. As David said, a lot of things change over the decades regarding protecting the environment and the shoreline and so on. So, it's just really interesting to me that we're kind of dancing around, at least it seems to me we're dancing around the fact that this is a violation, and to me sort of an egregious violation, and there should be a fine, maybe even, I don't know, this is very expensive property and a very big corporation for our town, and maybe a fine wouldn't be significant or whatever, but I think something is needed to just make sure that everybody knows that we're just not going to say, oh, you did that, okay, but never do it again. Because I don't know, I'm not so sure we do that with other properties like this. I don't know if there has been that type of approach in the past regarding this type of situation. So I would recommend that at least we discuss a fine per property or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think that was off the table. I think that we were just discussing the resolution side of it. But yeah, I certainly think that is something that should be considered. I think we lost Ed. I can't see him on the list anymore. So he may rejoin us. He may have just gotten disconnected. But yes, if you guys want to discuss that aspect of it, that certainly is another part of the discussion.
Well, like Paul said, I think we're getting to the stage of the game where these people are figuring that it's and not just the big corporations, but the little ones, is that it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission.
Yeah, for sure.
I agree with that. I think sitting through meetings before I became a member, it's one of the things that I thought about, that people oftentimes do something and then say, oh, oops. And I'll go back again and say 2018, the permit was up. Big corporation like this should know that.
So do you have an idea of to what level of fine you want to look at? Like a per property, a single fine per property?
Do we have any guidelines? I would say, $1,000 per property.
We would just have to figure out, let me just reference the enforcement.
It is a good thing you're in your office.
I carry this box wherever I go at the moment, so. Okay, so penalties under the bylaw. Who violates or causes to be violated of this chapter shall be punished by a fine of not less than $100 or more than $300 for each violation, and in addition, not less than $300 for each subsequent violation. So it's a per violation charge. So if you look at this as one violation per each property, and so therefore you would have the maximum would be $300 per property. Or I don't know if you want to look at it for each year that this was done since the permit expired, because it was work that was carried out outside of a permit. Maybe a little more difficult because we don't have evidence of that from previous years. So to act within the wording of the bylaw, we would be looking at a $300 per property.
Okay, so do it. Let's do $300 per property.
I'm comfortable with $300 per property.
We have to be very careful that we are not imposing something that's disproportionate to what we would normally assess as a fine for anyone else in the community. And by $300 a property, I think we're being careful.
Well, we're within regulations, evidently.
Yes, and we must stay there.
Yeah, and that's in line with other fines that have been issued
Yeah.
for violations.
I agree.
I agree with that.
Ed, you're back.
Yes, thanks for that wonderful advertisement for Comcast. So makes everybody want to run right out and get it, right?
And it made you drop out.
I'm with y'all. So anything further with that?
We're okay with the current arrangement moving forward with the property owners in terms of managing the property, and then a $300 per property fine for each of the 4 properties. So we would just need a motion to that effect.
Okay, is there a motion to that?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we, regarding the fines, is a $300 fine per property, and that all instructions regarding further maintenance of the beach be followed by the owners.
I second it.
Okay, David seconded. Kelly, would you call the roll, please?
Bishop,
I believe he recused himself. hasn't
Yes.
he?
oh, sorry, yes, of
That's
course. Durkin,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Lawrence,
Aye.
Oops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
So the motion carries 6-0 with 1 abstain.
All right, thank you, Kelly. All right, so that's items 3, 4, and 5. So moving on to the next enforcement is Ocean Vacations LLC, 4 Glenwood Street, unpermitted vegetation removal within the buffer zone to a coastal bank. Kelly, do you have any?
I've just, somebody had their hand raised. Is that Nick in the audience?
Good evening. This is Mike O'Coin. I'm with All Cape Septic and Survey located
Oh,
in
okay.
West Yarmouth. And Nicholas Fiorello contacted us recently and requested I attend tonight's meeting since he was apparently going to be unavailable.
So
And apparently, yes, go ahead.
This
are
is
you
the-
here for Glenwood Street?
4 Glenwood Street, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. So hold on for just a minute. We're going to get Kelly to give us a brief introduction of what's going on. Then we'll turn it over to commissioners, and then we'll ask you for comment as well then, okay?
Thank you.
All right, sure. Hold on just a minute. Kelly?
Okay, so this was one that we had on our last agenda, but Nicholas couldn't make contact, so we continued it to this meeting. Since then, I've received a restoration plan. Just in summary, the violation was the removal of the vegetation in this area between the house and the top of the coastal bank and down the side here. This vegetation here along the property line and on the town road right of way, and this vegetation here along the property and the road right away along the edge of the septic system. So you can see images on the side there of the front of the house, well, sorry, the water side of the house, where this area was mostly beach grass in this area. And then I think it changed over to shrubs along the other side of the house. And then the bottom photo shows that's the area where it was mostly like shrub vegetation, probably some invasives and vines and things all mixed in there along the edge of the road. So the next slide shows the same image of the property, but on the right-hand side, what has been provided to me today as a restoration plan. Somewhat lacking in that it's addressing this corner here with some creeping juniper and I think sweet fern, but is not addressing the area in front of the property, sorry, on the water side of the property, where there was the beach grass, and not addressing those two cleared areas along the road side of the house.
Okay. All right, so
Kelly,
Kelly, were they, did they have any, have they had previous filings with us? With Yarmouth?
I was out, there was two past filings quite a long time ago, which are both closed out. I was out at the property, I think about a year ago, maybe, for building permit sign off, where they were just doing some work to the existing structure. And I had spoken to them at the time then, because the contractor was storing all of their equipment on the beach grasses. And so I had asked them to remove it all off there to stop the beach grasses getting damaged. So that's the extent of my involvement with the property.
Okay. But it was this homeowner that you spoke to about that? The contractor?
I'm not sure, because I know it does have a new homeowner, a new property owner, and I dealt with the contractor at the time, so I'm not sure whether that was before or after it had changed ownership. I'm assuming it was after it changed ownership, because they were doing improvements to the property, but I am not sure.
Okay. All right. Anybody on the commission have any other comments or concerns? I mean, I would add that the planting is woefully inadequate. They need to beef that up severely, but anybody else on the commission?
I would agree to that, Ed. It's not sufficient enough for what they tore out.
We talked, I'm
Hold on,
sorry, go
David.
ahead, Paul.
David, hold on, Paul.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, this on the heels of the other one. So here's a situation where work was done without permit. They provided a vegetation plan, which is certainly in need of improvement. In addition to this, I believe there should, to be consistent, there should be a fine associated with this violation as well. And the amount to be discussed by the commission. So personally, what I'd like to see is an improved vegetation plan and a fine.
I agree with Paul.
Pardon?
Okay. Let's see.
I agree with Paul. He basically said what I was going to say. So thank you, Paul.
All right. Anybody else?
I'm in agreement with what Paul said.
Okay, so we need to put a date
Oh,
on.
I'm sorry.
so-
I have one thing to say. Sorry, Paul, Ed. Last meeting, we talked about knowing who the contractor was, the landscaper. Do we have any say over finding him too, or that company? I mean, I would think landscapers know better than to do what they did.
Yes, we do. I mean, we do have jurisdiction. We can certainly find the landscape company as well. So we'll try and find out who did that as well in just
I
a
think
minute.
Kelly said she knew who it was.
Yeah, I do have that information. I don't have it to hand, but I do have
All
it.
right, so let's before we get too far ahead of ourselves. So you're looking for we're looking for an improved restoration planting plan. We need to give them a deadline, a date certain for that. So normally something like that, this is not that big, so you could probably do that in probably 6 weeks, if that seems reasonable.
Yes.
So let's see, 6 weeks from now would be
July 31st.
July 31st. Thank you, Mr. Bishop. So so we'll call it July 31st to have a improved restoration planting plan that will cover all sides of the property that have been cut, not just the east. Sorry, that's the west side. And I think we should also make sure that they understand they should be using native plantings, and that they give some sort of diversity. That I think they need to do a little bit more diversity than just a row of one species of plants or one species of shrub, that sort of thing. So those would be my comments for that. Then as far as the landscape contractor, is that we can find that out as well. So we'll put that down as July 31st for that. And if we don't receive that, then I would say you should probably go ahead and fine for that as well if they don't receive it. All right, I'm sorry. So the representative for the homeowner, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name the first time around. So if you could state your name for the record.
Yes, it's Mike Aucoin, Aucoin. And
Okay.
I understand, yes.
No, you go ahead.
Yes, we were basically informed to work with Kelly, and what we did was we came up with some existing plans of record to sort of show us and the board of what type of area we were talking about. And again, we didn't see the property prior to, but we were instructed to work with Kelly to get this restoration plan done accordingly so that he can be approved and move forward.
Okay. Do you know what company did the work?
I do not, because again, we were just hired as the engineering surveying, so we just came on. And what the only suggestion and or thought I had on that was if we could possibly at least have the landscaper approved by Kelly, since I know I believe there's a lot of landscapers out there. I don't know who did it, and so I would imagine we're not going to use the same people, but at least if the owner came up with a company, we could suggest it, and then if that was say approved by Kelly in goodwill, I'm not sure, but that's what one thought I had.
Okay.
Just look back through the records, and the landscaper was Campbell Landscaping, which I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one.
I see, yeah.
So do we have contact information for them?
Yes, I believe we have a phone number for them that was taken off the side of their vehicle.
Okay. All right. So I think we're set on what we expect the homeowner to do. Were you planning on fining the homeowner?
Under your advisement. So do you want to look at a fine for both the property owner and the landscaper of $100 each?
I think that was Paul's intent.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there should be a fine. The thing is, I understand the idea of finding the landscaper for sure. I think we'd have a lot better chance of putting the onus on the homeowner who could, by making it a $300 fine. And then if the homeowner can do what they want in terms of talking to the landscaper for doing the work and costing them $300. And chasing after the landscaper might prove to be a bit difficult. Again, I think, to me anyway, personally, it makes, I would recommend putting the fine in the arena of the homeowner in the amount of even $200. And yeah, I don't know what kind of success we've had in terms of finding landscapers. I just don't know. So again, you know, the property owner has the ultimate responsibility as far as I'm concerned. A $200 fine for him or her, and the restoration plan.
Okay, so I can agree with the, I mean, I would agree with the $200 fine, that's fine. I think you need to, so that would be for the actual cutting violation. And then just so the commission understands that we should be addressing the fact that if we don't receive the restoration planting plan by the approved date, then that should be, there's where I would say, you know, then you're looking at a $300 fine. And we could do something similar to what we did last week or last meeting, where we were saying, you know, $300 every week until we get the plan. And so that gives a little bit more emphasis on the homeowner to get everything done. And I think the other thing, then we should still go ahead and find the landscaper.
Okay, just that a clarification. So we would move forward with the restoration plan without a fine at this point in time, or there would be a fine and then move forward with the restoration plan?
You're gonna do a fine right now.
Yeah.
You're proposing $200.
Okay.
That would be issued right now.
That's
and
fine.
then
Yeah.
along with that, the enforcement order would state that they have to have this restoration plan done by the 31st of July.
Mhm.
And that they're subject to fines thereafter if they don't have that plan done on time.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Okay.
And Ed, I also agree with you. The landscaper should know better, and we
Yeah.
should give a fine to the landscaper.
I agree with,
we can't necessarily make them pay it. I mean, that's what you always hope with any kind of a fine, but
It puts them on notice that we're
Yeah.
watching them.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that will spread throughout the rest of the landscaping community too. We've got to hold them accountable too.
I'm good with that.
I'm sorry, David, you've been trying to say
no,
something.
it's okay. I was going to say, before Ellie did that, we shouldn't let the landscaper off easy, because they should know better. And if they don't know better, they should go find someplace to learn. I happened to walk by these two landscapers today, right around the corner from Tom's house. And I just happened to notice them because they were close to where I was going to try to walk, and I had to wait till they got out of the way. And I walk all the time, my neighbor, I'd never seen them before. So their phone number wasn't like a 508 or a 774 number on the side of the truck. If I have the right.
Campbell?
Yeah. Am I right, Kelly?
I understand that it was a 774 number.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I've got the wrong people then. Anyway, I concur. We should find them too.
Okay, Rick Bishop.
Mr. Chairman, I think there's some commissioners on the board that will recall we have discussed conceptually the idea of finding landscapers for many, many years. I think going back to the fellow that mowed the marsh grass right down to the edge of Bass River, north of the Route 28 bridge. I believe this will be unprecedented. I'm certainly a proponent of it, but just as a commission, we want to make sure that without potentially more discussion on our part, that we want to go forward with this. It's just I want to get that point out there, because again, we've talked about it for years, and I don't recall any time that we have fined a landscaper. So it's just a point that I would say deserves a little more discussion, in my opinion. That's all.
Yeah, we did find the landscape company that was tree company, I guess, that did the wholesale clear cutting over on Harbor Road, what, 5 or 6 years ago. It ended up with less than ideal results, but there is a precedent there that we did do that. That ended up going into large fines, court ordered fines, and I assume they were paid eventually, but I don't know. And other commissions routinely fine landscape companies. It's a matter of course that, I mean, if landscapers of all people should know better.
Indeed.
There's absolutely no excuse for a landscape company to be sitting down and saying, "Oh, I didn't know that this was against the rules," and the way you need to. That this is what we. Oftentimes, I think that homeowners will sit there and tell a landscaper, "Oh, go ahead and cut that or do this," and they offer a little extra incentive to do that, and far too often landscape companies go ahead and do that, and it's not right. So
Agreed.
Anybody else?
This is Pat. We're just on this whole restoration plan. I was just noting that we should have a 3-year monitoring on this plan, just to make sure that the plants become established.
Yeah, I would agree. Yep, that's a good one. Thank you. All right, any further discussion among the board? Mr. Acoin, do you have anything else?
No, I don't.
All right, you understand what we're asking?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and you'll be able to relay that to the homeowners then?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Kelly, do you have anything further?
I just wanted to clarify what the amount of the fine ended up being for the property owner and the landscaper.
Well, we've gone everywhere between 100, 200, and 300. I think they finally settled on 200. Is that right, board?
It's
That's
200.
the one that was mentioned.
So
Ellie?
200 for each of them?
Yes, I think it was 200 for the homeowner. I don't think we had a set
Yeah.
amount for the landscaper.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was 200 for the homeowner is what we discussed. We didn't really discuss amounts for the landscaper.
We'll make that 200 also.
All right, anybody agree? Everybody in agreement?
Yes.
All right, so 200 apiece, and so the potential for more fines if the restoration plan isn't filed in a timely manner by deadline. Would somebody like to make a motion to that effect? Just say so moved.
So moved.
Okay, Tom moved it. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, David seconded. Kelly, would you call the roll?
Well, let's add the 3-year monitoring period for the plantings.
So I'm putting this in an enforcement order. So if you could just make a motion to issue an enforcement order for those conditions.
So that's agreeable, Tom and David?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. So Kelly, call the roll, please.
Bishop,
Aye.
Durkin,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Lawrence,
Aye.
Oops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, thank you, Kelly. Next order of business, another enforcement issue for Seaside Cottages, 135 South Shore Drive, unpermitted fence on a coastal beach. That seems pretty
Okay.
straightforward.
So this one, well, it's not, unfortunately. There were existing fences on this beach at each end of this property. It's between two town beach properties, and this is the fence one end down here, and then this is the fence at the other end that have just recently been replaced. From what I can make out from the images that I have, aerial images, and I have a couple of images on file from the town properties, this fence here looks pretty much the same dimensions as it was before. This fence over at this other end, which is here, looks like it may have gone a bit longer because there is already 2 sections of fence coming down the bulkhead and then some sand fencing, and then on the flat there's these 2 sections here. So this is a continuation of this picture. Sorry, my photography skills were a little lacking. And I think it looks like maybe this has come out 1 more section. Just based on doing the measurements, I measured this section up here, which I think is 24 feet, which this is certainly longer than that. Now, these are fences that have been there for a long time. They've been periodically replaced by the sound of it, never permitted, and not suitable fences for a coastal beach. They become storm debris because they are a solid fence. They, create greater wave energy against them, so it damages the fence, it damages the vegetation around, and causes additional erosion. You can actually see, I looked back through the images of this section here of beach in terms of its vegetation, and obviously it has suffered some storm damage, the loss of vegetation over time in this area. But this area here was also very well vegetated at one point, and I think it may be suffering from wave energy that is scouring out behind the fence and is causing a loss of vegetation here. And you can see in this image, there is a lot of vegetation here behind the fence, and here there is none. And this is now. So I think that they've also lost a lot of vegetation in this location over time as a result of having these solid fences there. From my point of view, I don't see a huge issue with having a smaller scale split rail fence in these environments, because it allows water and sediment to pass through them unimpeded, and they can be used to symbolize the ends of the property. And we do have those in other locations in town, mostly, primarily right up on the upper beach, not getting anywhere near the mean high water line. The property owner, these went up a couple of weeks ago, I think, and we received a complaint from somebody living in the local area who was using the town beach parcels. The property owners, who I think are in the audience, and I will allow her to speak as well, asked that if they are able to leave these fences in for the season, seeing as they're there, and replace them with split rail fences in the following season, then that would be their preference. But obviously I asked them to come along to speak with you to discuss it further.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. My impression would be that there should not be stockade fencing on the beach anywhere at any time. So I agree with you that there should be a split rail. I can see a split rail. I would propose that they remove the stockade fence within 10 days, and they can replace it with once they get permitting, they can replace it with the split rail. That would be my take on it. I'm willing to listen to anybody else on the commission.
I agree with you, Ed, and I do walk that beach quite a bit, and that there is an extra panel on there from the last time that I because they've been deteriorating over the last couple of years, but there is an extra panel on that stockade fence.
Okay, I'll go to Tom and then to Paul. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah. I think that the Conservation Commission has a dual responsibility to the community. First is the regulation of the bylaws and to maintain the appropriateness of those bylaws. Secondly, we have an educational responsibility. Many times we issue a notice, thou shalt get rid of, or thou shalt do such. And what we don't attend to that is the reason that you are requested to do this is because, number one, it messes up the entire beach. Number two, it ruins the vegetation. Number three, we have that obligation and we don't fulfill that as often as I feel we should. In this particular instance, I think education is the main consideration rather than considering a violation. These fences have been up in one form or another for a long time. Nobody has pinned the people responsible for it. So education is definitely required. Thank you.
Okay, no, I don't disagree with you, Tom. Paul.
Yeah, I agree with Tom to an extent. I think all of these matters would benefit from greater education about responsibilities having to do with taking care of property like this. It seems, looking at it though, that this is another example of somebody building something, putting up something that really is out of character and out of keeping with the area, with the maintenance of a beach in an area like this. Therefore, it would be my recommendation to basically go along with Ed, to say that the fence should be removed, the split rail should be installed, and in addition to that, that some native vegetation be planted to, as Kelly writes in her notes, to trap sand and stabilize the dune.
Okay, so a couple different issues there with that. Anybody else on the commission have any further comment? Rick?
And I tend to agree with you 100% in terms of removal and replacement, but I don't necessarily agree with asking the property owner to replace vegetation. I think a strong argument can be made that the armored bank on the town beach is what's contributing to the scouring around there, because typically when you see a armored beach end, it scours in from that point on. So I think it's a little unfair to ask them to do that.
I can see that point, Rick. I do agree there. Anybody else? Right, Lauren, are you the homeowner?
Yep. So ultimately, I will just explain a little bit. So this is my first year coming in here and managing this property. And from my understanding and from pictures, that I've seen, this fence has been up for many, many years. And, our maintenance guy that's been here for, over 8 years, he, went ahead, we replaced it this year. And, ultimately, I guess at the end of the day, it's just, a misunderstanding on our end. And, I apologize for that. And, I understand whatever we have to do, we have to do. So, I have no problem, if we have to replace it with the split rail.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so just to give you a little bit of just a very, very quick, so we won't make you do an hour-long coastal ecology lecture out on the beach there, but as much as I love doing that, but so there are a couple issues here. First of all, there's the fence is unpermitted, so what we're going to try and do is bring you into a compliance that way by asking you to fill out. We're going to go with an RDA with this, Kelly. Is that right? Right. So we'll do an RDA, which is a relatively simplified application process. It shouldn't take. I mean, you could probably fill it out yourself in 15, 20, 30 minutes at most. So it's not an onerous application process. You don't have to hire consultants, that sort of thing. The idea is to remove the stockade fence. The stockade fence just doesn't have the right. It's just not right for the beach environment because it impedes the normal flow of air and sand transport. So sand moves back and forth across the beach, and that sand is how dunes get built, how beaches get built, and it's also what helps move the plants and plant material around as well.
Right.
and eventually establish plants in these little pockets of sand where it gets a little less wind, and thereby creating dunes. And the dunes are the things that ultimately protect the coastline. So the reason for removing the stockade fence is a legitimate one. There's scientifically backed reasoning behind that. And so we will ask that you remove the stockade fence within we'll say 10 days from the issuance of the order. That you apply for a split rail fence that would certainly be appropriate in these areas. That you do that in the form of what's called a request for determination of applicability, and Kelly can help you with finding the form for that. And that you do that, we'll give you again. I think you could certainly do that. We'll give you to July 31st, but I think it's something that you could probably do in literally less than an hour's time. So any time between now and then. And that will allow you to go ahead and put split rail fence then in its place. And we can give a little bit more background on in terms of the ecological reasons why we're looking for that specific type of fence rather than the stockade.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
So, from my understanding, like I said, this fence has been up for many, many years. Is it becoming, is it just the first time that there's been a complaint on it, and that's now why, we have to move forward with it?
Oftentimes that is, I hate to say it this way, but oftentimes that is what happens. Is people are busy. They keep moving on about their daily lives, and if somebody complains about it and it's an obvious violation, then we are actually compelled to try and seek some sort of resolution here. And so we're trying to do that, and so both that's good for the environment, that meets the tenets of the Wetlands Protection Act, and allows you to still maintain use and enjoyment of the property as well. So
I could just
because
add to
it
that.
happened years ago. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to add to that. It's the fact that the fence has just been rebuilt has brought it to light, but it was brought to light because somebody made a complaint. So generally, if there's something that's sitting there which has been there for years, then we may not pay as much attention to it. But if it's then going to be rebuilt, we would be looking for it to be brought into compliance at that point. So if this fence was being rebuilt, then it should have sought permitting, and we could have then been able to advise of what would be a more appropriate structure in that location.
Right, and I mean, we've applied that same understanding. I don't know if you were here earlier for the earlier hearings, but we had several hotels that had done similar things. I mean, there had been long-standing things that had been done in the past, but things have changed, and so we're trying to move on here at this point and bring everybody into compliance. So
okay.
All right, any further discussion amongst the commission? All right, so if not, could I get a motion for issuing the enforcement order?
So moved.
Rick's motioned. Is there a second? Tom, are you
No.
seconding or questioning?
No, I'm requesting an amendment
Okay,
to that, and the fact that the stockade fence be removed at the end of this season, and the beginning of the next season, a split rail fence be introduced into the area. All other aspects of Ed's proposal, I'm very much in favor of.
all right, Rick, will you accept that?
I'm a little confused because I thought Ed's proposal was to have the stockade fence taken down within 10 days and have the split rail put up in its place.
That's correct, except that I would like to amend that motion to have the stockade fence removed at the end of this season rather than within 10 days.
That's ultimately too what I was asking in the beginning, if we could deal with it at the end of the season.
I need to hear from the other commissioners.
This is David. I'd like to see it removed ASAP. I think
Alright.
it's gonna hurt the environment.
I agree.
I
It should
think
be
it should be
removed.
removed. This is Pat.
I'm sorry, Pat, go ahead. And again,
I think it should be removed in the way you wanted it, 10 days.
okay, so, yeah, Paul?
Yeah, I would think it should be removed right away.
Okay, so, Rick, if you're not willing to change it, go ahead and make your motion again. Then I'll ask for a second. And then we'll just have to go ahead and call the vote on that.
I make a motion that the existing stockade fence be removed within 10 days and replaced with a split rail fence in kind.
Second.
All right, Kelly, call the roll, please.
Bishop,
Aye.
Durkin,
Nay,
Bernstein,
Aye.
Lawrence.
I think Ellie left.
Oh, okay. So that would be absent. Oops.
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
So the motion carries 5-1 and 1 absent.
Okay. All right, and just let the record show that Commissioner Lawrence has left the meeting at 6 p.m. All right, next order of business is another enforcement hearing for Leanne and Thomas O'Connor for 6 roads and unpermitted vegetation removed within the buffer zone to Long Pond.
Okay, so the next 2 are fairly minor ones, which I, rightly or wrongly, have dealt with already, but I wanted to give you an update in case you had any feedback on them. So 6 Roads End was new property owners who just purchased this house, and I got a report of tree cutting at the property. So we had the work stopped, and then I met with the property owners, and they were having some trees pruned in the front of the yard. They had a lot of vines around the trees, so they were having some vines removed, mostly on the roadside of the house. But they had begun with removing some vines down in this area you can see in the images, which is in the buffer to the wetland, to the pond. And so they stopped that work. I met with them and asked them to go ahead and file a request for determination of applicability for any further work that they want to do and cleaning out the vines and things in that area. They're not looking at converting any vegetation. They were purely trying to improve the health of the trees, because even these ones you can see here are covered in vines. So I have asked them to put together a sketch plan and a request for determination, and they're going to be filing that with the commission, I believe, for the next deadline. And they also, at the same time, we talked about this area at the side of the house where they were having a bit of an erosion issue. So they are also, we talked about, this was one of those education opportunities. We talked about what they could do to improve that situation. So they were looking at maybe putting in some terracing to try and stop the flow of water down the side of the house. So they, we also talked about them including that in the RDA as well, so that they could address that at the same time. Other than that, they were, they had made a mistake that they didn't realize that they needed to come for permission first, but there was very little damage to the property, and they have already come back to me with a admin request to do some other tree pruning to finish with pruning the trees that are overhanging the house. So I've been working with them since then as well. So did you have any other comments that you wanted to make with regard to that one? They are not
No,
present.
I'm fine, as long as you're happy with it. I'm fine with it, Kelly. Anybody in the commission?
Okay.
All good.
Okay, and then the other one is Beach Road, which is it's a small isolated wetland, but it is jurisdictional. And we did have the property owner on the other side of this isolated wetland before us about a month ago, where they had, again, new property owners had begun clearing some of the vegetation between the house and the isolated wetland. So we had taken the opportunity to educate that property owner, and this property owner is again a new property owner for a small house here, and they have this tree with a split trunk that was overhanging the house, and so they had someone come in to remove it. At the same time, this wetland is suffering from an awful lot of trash and junk that has been dumped in it over the years by I guess maybe when the houses were developed, but over a number of years. And what they were trying to do is pull out all of the trash. So in addition to cutting this tree, they were removing a lot of the debris. There's like cinder blocks and, you know, sheets of metal, all sorts of stuff in there. So the area around the tree looks more disturbed as well because of the removal of the trash. So I went ahead and gave them approval to finish removing the tree because it was a hazard tree. And I said that they could continue just removing the trash, but with no heavy equipment. They had to do it all by hand. And then allow this area, they weren't allowed to like extend their lawn area. Pretty much where the photo is taken from is the edge of their lawn area. And this is all like the edge of the wetland, then going into the wetland area. So it's sort of right on the edge of the buffer there. So I said for them to go ahead and finish removing the tree and then just leave that area to renaturalize. You could already see the shoots coming back from the area where the trash had been removed. So it hopefully should be a big improvement in this area over the existing conditions.
Okay, I'm good with that. Anybody else in the commission?
Next.
All right, so let's move on to other business then. The first up is a discussion on personal watercraft roll and go ramp for jet ski use. And this is specifically at 184 Blue Rock Road, being proposed by Steve Truly.
And I've just allowed Dan to speak in the slides that I have on, sorry, Steve Truly, as your name says, Dan, on there. I have got the slides up here that were sent to me by Mr. Truly. So if you guys are okay with that, I'll get him to go ahead and present those.
Great. Yeah, if we could just go ahead and have him run through quickly, if we can do that, just so we can get into discussion.
If you could skip to the next slide. So pictured to the bottom left is the actual PWC roll and go ramp. It's a metal ramp that has a winch attached to the front of it. Essentially, you glide the personal watercraft jet ski into the shore, engine off, you dismount the jet ski, attach the front to the winch, and winch it up the metal ramp. The ramp sits on the shoreline on the sand. I believe it extends 18 to 21 feet long, and the winch is at the front end of the ramp. Go to the next slide. This is a picture of the beach behind our house. The ramp will sit about 10 to 15 feet to the right of that seagrass, away from everything, all vegetation in that area. That's about it for the presentation.
It will only be there for basically the summer months. It only weighs 165 pounds. And come September, it'll come up and go in the garage, and back in May or June, it'll go back out there. And it's just to allow us to use the jet ski instead of having to trailer it down, and it takes two of us to get it off, one to back the truck in, and one to take the jet ski off. This way, one person can do it. And again, you don't drive it up on it. You basically stop yards from the edge of the water, and then just walk it in, put it on the rollers, hook it up, and rinse it right up.
Ed, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. So I'm going to turn it over to the commission. Anybody have any questions or comments?
Are you asking for permission for one of those? The picture had three, that's why I'm asking.
No, just one, just one. That's just a picture from the catalog.
Yeah, okay, just asking.
Yeah, I have some fundamental problems with it. Frankly, it's in a way it could be defined just as like a dock. It's blocking access to the water by someone if they wanted to walk along. It's creating shadows over the edge of the water area. I think it would be a bad precedent because it's just not something that I would consider.
No one walks down there but us. It's not a beach. It's basically the front of our house. Right and left of our house is basically all grass and then trees. And the shadow is no more than the shadow of the jet ski, which is 8 feet long and 3 feet high.
I think the issue there is though that we also have, I mean, if you were going to do a dock, if you were going to permit a dock in that area or in any area, you would certainly be required to provide public access either around or below by maintaining elevation. So I have that same concern, is that you're taking up real estate in the intertidal zone that, you know, I think there's an access issue with that. I mean, if it were a dock, you would have to do something that would allow for pedestrian passage. So that's my concern. Paul, you had a question.
Yeah, wouldn't this be similar to just pulling up, let's say you had an open boat of some sort, a skiff or whatever, and you pulled it up on the beach and tied it up and left it there? Would it be the same thing? And what would the regulations say to that particular use?
Well, it would be similar to pulling a boat up on the sand. A boat can sit on the sand, but a jet ski has to be up off the ground a little bit so that the water doesn't get into it. That's why it's got a little higher end to it. But I'm not sure what regulations are there out there about putting a boat up under the sand.
I wonder if Kelly, you could speak to that.
Yeah, I guess there's two permitting agencies who would need to weigh in on it, because it would have to go through a formal application to, I guess it would be considered to be a temporary structure, temporary water dependent structure. So it needs to go through Chapter 91 for some type of review in terms of the public access to waterways, but also through Division of Marine Fisheries in terms of any perceived impacts to benthic organisms and shellfish and the like of it sitting on the beach there. So it would need to go through those review agencies. It'd be interesting to see what they have to say about it. I know DMF have been reluctant to support jet ski floats in shallow water because of impacts from them when they are entering those. I don't know if this is different because they would, I guess, be switched off and walked in, so the impacts may be less, but they would certainly need to weigh in on that discussion. It's an interesting idea. If it's an open beach and it's not sitting in vegetation and it's being walked in up onto a ramp, then it's off the bottom. But it is a temporary structure, water dependent structure, so it would need to go through those levels of permitting. That's my understanding anyway.
Are there forms for me to get from you, Kelly, to fill out and file?
Yeah, I mean, it would have to, I think, because it's in a wetland resource area, it would have to go through the notice of intent process. And you would also have to, I would speak with the Chapter 91 agency at the DEP first to see what their thoughts are on it, because there's a whole lengthy permitting process and licensing process. So you might want to find out what they would require first, so you know what you're in for before you start that permitting process. I don't know what their response with that would be. Ed, I don't know if you have any better idea for how they would address something like this.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I don't see it anything, I think you're looking at, I mean, just my own personal opinion would be that, like, you're looking at a lot of money to go through a permitting process that, you know, may or may not result in what you're looking for at a variety of different stages. So because you have to go through DMF Chapter 91. I don't know if I've ever seen them weigh in on something like this. So
yeah, I mean, you could, you know, at least contact those agencies and get their kind of feel for it first before you started on that process.
I would definitely recommend that. That's because, I mean, with the notice of intent, you're going to be looking at engineered plans, and those aren't going to be cheap. So I think I would try and do a little bit more research from Chapter 91 and DMF first, get some ideas from them first, to give you a little bit more guidance. Because like I said, I don't, that's all I would be able to say.
So that would be basically similar than going to be going for a dock.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's go for a dock. All right. Thank you very much for your time, Kelly.
All right. Sure. Thank you. Good luck.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. Next order of business, discussion on meeting time.
Yeah, I was the one who brought this up last meeting. You know, I don't work, so 4:30 is a great time for me. I don't want to step on anybody's timing. I'm willing to do anything, but I just thought it was worth a discussion. I like the idea. Here we are, almost 2 hours in, and it's almost 6:30, where it would be 8:30, and this is supposedly a short meeting. So, and I'm new, so, you know, I'm willing to go anywhere anybody wants to do, but I thought it was worth a discussion since we've been meeting at 4:30.
Hi, Paul.
I could do 4:30.
4:30 is good for me.
All right, Rick.
It can be troublesome for me.
What's good for you?
Retire.
You know, while we're in this Zoom format, Tom, I think most of the time I can make 4:30. But once we get back to normal, I would prefer that we go back to the 6:30.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Okay, Pat, did you have a comment?
No, I'll go with the majority. I can do either.
Okay, so for now, we'll stay with 4:30 until the end of Zoom.
Sounds good.
Paul?
Yeah, and you know, I mean, the Zoom at 4:30 seems to work. I mean, I guess there is a consideration for, you know, folks who are working all day and then have to come to the, you know, the general public coming to these meetings in the evening. It's just that, you know, when they get to be, you know, I mean, we've been at a couple meetings going into 11 o'clock, I think, and, you know, us soul people have to get our rest, you know, so, you know, whatever we can do, you know.
You don't want to see my head hit the deck while you guys are talking.
So we'll stay with 4:30 for now.
Sounds good.
Hey,
Okay.
Okay. All right. Next order of business is discussion on wetland bylaw fees. Let me
Can I
start off by saying we need to increase them all.
Yes. Why didn't the selectmen put it on the agenda last time?
That I don't know. I think we're gonna have to. We were gonna make the proposal, right, Kelly? But they just didn't. They didn't put it on their. Quit being lazy. You
Ellie's
can't press
muted.
the space bar. You're gonna have to take it fully off mute. She can't. Tom.
I didn't hear the
I'm trying to-
foregoing. I was reading. I can't do two things at once. Kelly, how do we compare Yarmouth to the other communities, or how do you do so in order to get similar fees? Is it through the density of the population itself, the area of the township?
I think Kelly's getting on the phone because she can't unmute
I think
herself.
she's gonna,
Oh, the phone rang?
No, she
she
can't
can't.
unmute herself suddenly.
She's calling
Oh.
in.
I
So
see
she's-
it. Do you have an idea about this, Ed?
yeah, I mean, so we are on the, definitely on the low side.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's, for a long time, people have always, especially the politicians have always looked at it like, oh, you got to keep fees low, you got to keep fees low. But at the same time, they're taking more and more money away, and especially in this heavily restricted budget season that we're coming up on, they're taking even more money. And so, you know, that's untenable. I mean, we are running out of money, and we won't have enough money to pay our administrator. And so, in terms of, I don't think there's any one set formula ever created. I think it's done by individual community. And like I said, so if you look at the comparison chart, we are definitely on the low side of the fee structure, and we don't charge for certain fees too.
Yeah, well,
So,
the comparison
think,
chart is 2017. We're in
as a general
2021
rule, we could
now.
probably increase
You know? Hello? What happened there?
Kelly wants to speak.
Oh,
Kelly,
Kelly.
someone has to turn her, says here, can someone allow me to speak?
I just clicked that.
You just did it?
Yeah, I don't. Hello?
Kelly,
Hold up your hand, Kelly, if you can speak. No.
Maybe we have to continue this discussion another time until we could get her. If I may, while we're waiting though, I've always had trouble with the fees because they seem to be somewhat arbitrary. And there's never any good rationale for why a fee has to be $100 or $200. If it's just based on something, that would be very helpful. If in fact we have to pay the salary of the administrator, that would be a way of determining what a typical fee would be. You know, maybe based on the math having to do with the number of fees that are the number of permits that are typically applied for and things like that. Otherwise, it just seems like people pick numbers out of the hat, and I know, you know, it just seems it never has a rationale that is really explainable in any way.
I agree completely with Paul, and I think it should be a concrete rationale.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Paul.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
I do agree we need to up our fees, and I don't think we're upping them a lot. I think we need to go to the selectmen and Moss and explain it to them. And yes, I do think we need to have good reasons.
Good. Is Kelly with us?
She's trying to get on, but I don't know how to turn on her mic. She's not under the attendees anymore. And under her, it has her mic off, but I don't know how to turn it on. And I don't even know what that little red kind of mountain with a red dot in the middle is, and nobody else has.
He's over in the margin in the chat. Yeah, I don't know.
It does allow her to speak, but I don't know how we do that. She was.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hello, everybody. I hope you were having some sort of conversation while I was gone, right?
No.
No.
We straightened everything out.
Well, good.
When were you
Fill me
gone?
in and then we'll move on. How's that? We haven't gotten Kelly back now.
No.
No, she's trying to call. I can see the phone at her ear.
And that's our show for this week, folks.
Yeah, can we save this for the next meeting? Would that be a good idea at this point?
I mean, we can certainly do that. I mean, this doesn't have to be done, but I think Kelly is looking at the fiscal end of things, and there's got to be a little bit of concern here for this. So, why don't we move on for now? If we can, we'll go
Wait a minute,
ahead.
here she is. She's connecting
Oh,
now.
hi, Kelly.
There she is. She's got a check mark.
Now
Kelly,
she's
need-
gonna unmute again.
Yeah,
muted,
can you,
though.
there you
There we
go.
go.
Yes, we
Alright.
can hear you.
So my computer has frozen, so I can hear you, but I can't, my microphone and everything's not working. So I'm on my phone. So I'm sorry about that. I don't know what happened. And I can't leave the meeting because it'll just shut the meeting down.
That's what
So, because I'm the host. So I am sorry about that. But I was listening mostly to what you were saying about the fees. And we got to the point last time of going through and recommending fee changes, and then I took that to town administration to get that on the agenda for the Board of Selectmen. And at that point, town administration wasn't prepared to put it on the agenda. They didn't think it was the right time for it. So I'm just suggesting we try that again. I don't know whether you wanted to again look at the fee structure and make any additional changes at this point, or whether you're okay with it as it is to be presented to them.
How would the fee structure arrived at?
It was a combination of the amount of work involved with a particular type of permit application, bringing it in line with what other towns were doing. So those were kind of the main sort of justifications behind it. Mostly like how much time does it take to process different types of applications, and how reflective the current fees are of that. And then of course the after the fact fees, where we don't charge those, but it's a good way of deterring people from doing work and then asking for forgiveness later if they have to file double fees for an after the fact filing.
Yeah, Tom?
Kelly, I don't understand completely. When you say that the fees reflect the amount of time that is required of the administration, the conservation administration or administrator, to process requests, in essence, can you say that the fees will possibly pay your salary and all other expenses?
No,
Is
no, definitely not.
Commission independent of the town administration's largesse in the budget?
No, the fees as proposed would definitely not cover the actual cost, but it's to better reflect the work involved. So our fees, if they were to cover all of our expenses, would be extraordinary,
Astronomical?
I guess. Yeah, so, but this is an attempt to just better reflect the work involved by increasing those. I mean, the fact that they haven't been looked at and changed in a number of years.
But we should have a basis. We should have these fees reflect not only the amount of time, but the I'm trying to get the words. They reflect the personnel investment in having this done. Does that make any sense to anybody?
I think, I mean, we're never going to be able to
Yeah,
charge.
who's this, Tom?
How
I'll
do
call
we-
it back.
I don't know
I'm
how
on-
we quantify
Right.
that. You know,
Yeah, I'll call
Well,
it
we'll-
back. I'm online.
We'll never be able to charge what will cover the cost, the true cost of of the time that Kelly and the commission puts into it. So this is more to reflect the a relative scale of investment and time. So, and right now Kelly does all of the administrative reviews. She charges nothing for it whatsoever, but she could actually spend, you know, I mean, it's foreseeable where you would actually be spending as much time, if not even more time, with an with an administrative review than you would for an RDA application, depending on the type of work that's being proposed under that administrative review and the ability of the applicant to fill out the admin review. So, you know, it certainly takes more time, even if you're only spending 20 or 30 minutes on an admin review. You still have to, oftentimes you might have to go out and look at it. So a lot of times it's a significant investment in time, of which we're not getting anything back at all. We're not getting any financial aid from that application. So I think it more accurately would reflect the amount of time that is invested into each of the different types of applications. And the other thing, in terms of the after the fact, I mean, after the fact filings are there specifically to act as a deterrent or a deterrent for people, because otherwise you can, if you don't have after the fact filing fees, then you're looking at people as like, well, I'll take my chances. It's a crapshoot. If I get caught, well, then I pay the fee for whatever application I had to do in the first place. But if you get caught and you have after the fact, well, that's starting to add a little bit more. So then it would have been, then you're saying like, okay, well, then it would have made more sense for me just to file it regularly, pay the regular fee, and move on, and everything would be permitted. So that's the idea behind the after the fact. David.
I agree. I think I do like the fact that we do not charge for administrative review, because I think it brings people up to ask the questions versus ignore, you know, why spend X amount of money. I'm looking at the attachment 3 comparison of town fees. I don't see us out of kilter with anything. And I don't think we're asking for very much more money. I think it's what, $10, $5, 10, a little bit more for the request for determination. But I think we're in the ballpark of asking what we're a small amount of money for more fees. And I think we need to make a case for where does the money go? It doesn't pay for Kelly's salary, but how is this money used? And I'm not asking that question now, Kelly, but I think if we go to the town, the selectmen, we need to come up with reasons why we need this money and what it does. Whether it's education.
This money goes straight into the general fund. This is not used by the commission for any purposes. Any of the bylaw fees go straight into the general fund. So they are effectively paying towards my salary.
Right,
so,
but also to other costs for them run the town.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think the town would appreciate having a little extra funds.
So,
yeah, Paul?
Yeah. So in essence, to me, the thing is a fee is a tax. And so if I want to put a dock out there, I have to pay a fee. All right. It's a tax on me because I am in a position where I want to put a dock on my property. Okay. It's not based on my property value. It's not based on anything. It's just that if you want to do this in the town, you have to pay $500. The administrator of any of the departments is being paid a salary. Okay. Clearly that salary is less evidently than it should be, because the town has to generate money through these fees or taxes. And even in this case, you know, where you said that the fee does not go specifically to the conservation agent, then why are we interested in raising fees? That's something that squarely should go in the arena of the selectmen. Because again, it's not helping Kelly, it's not helping an administrator. It's just
Well, it does help.
How?
It helps her indirectly because it doesn't go directly to her salary, but by increasing the amount of money in the general fund, it provides money available for Kelly's salary. So it's not, no, it's not being done directly for Kelly, but it helps her in that we have the money available to pay her salary then.
But again, we call them fees, but they're really taxes. And maybe the thing is, we don't raise all the taxes of all the people in town to go into the general fund, because there are situations that occur, like people want to put a dock on their property. And it's unfair for everybody in the town to pay higher taxes so that I don't have to pay a fee to put a dock on my property. Okay, so maybe that's, in my mind anyway, the rationale for charging somebody $500 or $700 or whatever for a tax when I want to put a dock on my property or I want to do something else. See, there's a disconnect. The only way I can rationalize it, again, is by saying that if I want to do something in town that other people either won't do or can't do, I have to pay the additional tax on to get that done. Okay, so again, when we say we want to raise it by $100 or whatever, what we're in essence doing is raising that tax that I have to pay when I want to put a dock on my property, or if I'm building something that I want to get a building permit or whatever. Because everybody that's working, the building person, the inspector, the Kelly grant, everybody, they're getting paid a salary. Okay, so you would think that, well, if they're getting paid a salary, they should be able to do all this stuff without any additional tax on me. But I kind of get it that I'm not going to ask other people to pay higher taxes because of the fact that I want to put a dock there. So it's not a fee, it's a tax. And it doesn't make any difference. I mean, you have to pay it. But then we arbitrarily we don't come up with a real good reason why we have to raise something by $100 or $200. We also go and look at, well, what's Barnstable charging? You know, what difference does that make? That means nothing. It's just like, okay, so we're going to join that club and charge arbitrarily $700 or $800 or $900 for a particular permit. It doesn't make any sense. I know we need the money, but you know, it doesn't make any sense in terms of going to other towns. I've said enough, and probably not.
I think you said it well, Paul.
Well, I don't know.
Well, I don't come from the fees or taxes. You know, I think there's a difference, but I'm not going to get into a big argument about it. But I just want to say my philosophy's never been that taxes are things that everybody can use, roads, whatever. Fees are different. You look at the building permit, that must go into the general fund. That's a fee. Is that a tax? I don't think so. So that's just my feeling.
Yeah.
I think we lost our chief. Lose Ed again?
I think we did lose Ed.
Head exploded.
I probably.
Oh, and Rick, I thought you left, but you're back.
Somehow I lost connection for some reason. I had to re-enter through the portal.
Yeah, it's been a little off this evening. So how do we want to move forward with that? Do you want to take a vote on whether or not to proceed with increasing the fees? Do you want to review them a bit more, or?
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
I'll try to keep it short. Sorry. If the money from fees goes into a general fund, and if there's no way of really earmarking those funds for, let's say, conservation, why is it our responsibility? This is just a question. Why is it our responsibility to do anything at all in terms of the amount of fees?
That's a good question.
Oh, it's back.
I would answer that by saying that The selectmen do have the ultimate decision of whether these fees go in. We do not. We're just presenting it. So it is up to them to decide whether these fees, they may look at it and go, yeah, we'll accept this fee, but not accept that fee or whatever. But it's not, we're not forcing these fees to become.
So why should it come
fees.
from us, David?
Because just like, why does that fence come up in front of us because somebody brought it to us? Same thing with these fees. The selectmen aren't going to look at it and start to make more fees.
Oh
I
my
say if you look
God.
back at the history, I'm going to think that any fees that get raised by the by whatever that group is, whether it's a building or whatever. That's just my feeling.
Yeah, no, I get it. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Kelly, could you please refresh my memory? It seems as though we reviewed these fees 2 years ago. Has it been 2 years? It seems like it's been quite a while. And
It was
so-
2018, yes.
yeah, so given that, I would like to have a chance to look at them again and again use as a reference to me, is see understand what the other towns are charging. For me, that's a defendable point, in my opinion. I would just like to see where we are, if it has changed a lot around us or not, just because I'd like to understand that.
Okay, so do we want to have it on the agenda again?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes, and I think we lost Ed again.
Trying to tell us something.
Okay, so how long would you like? Do you want to have it on an agenda for a more full discussion on the level of the fees, or just some more time yourselves to review the fees and then come back at a later time?
I would like to look at the fees, and I think because of Paul's discussion, I think we need to further discuss that too. Whether it should come from us or not, since he brought it up.
Just if we discuss fees, and again, the money goes into the general fund, shouldn't we have somebody like the town administrator or someone who's responsible for the fiscal affairs of this town to be part of our conversation?
I don't see that happening.
Why not?
I think they have much bigger fish to fry right now, Paul. I think that there's significant issues that they're not going to. I don't see him allotting his valuable time to us at this point.
His valuable time? He works
Yeah.
for us. Don't forget that. We're taxpayers.
I understand.
Yeah.
No.
Would it be
But we're just going to
possible-
we'll be shooting in the dark. It's okay.
Well, I don't believe that, because that's why, as a reference point, if we could understand what other towns are charging, and we could kind of understand maybe perhaps they're thinking to a lesser degree, we would see where we are. Are we on par? Are we more expensive? Are we less expensive? Just to kind of understand that would be a helpful starting point for me personally.
Yeah, and we did that a while back. I agree.
2 years ago. Yeah.
When I first came on.
Could
Okay,
we take
I agree.
somebody and have them look into that, what the other towns are charging and
And
give us
that's
a
what,
report?
yeah, we did that. That's part of the work that we did when we reviewed them. Is that in this document? Yeah, it's in this document as the third attachment.
Okay.
Are those up to date?
They were up to date then, so they won't be up to date now. This
So they
is
might
just-
be wrong as of 2020. They may have raised fees.
They may have, yes.
Barnstable is 100% correct with what they have right now. So just to compare that.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
The fees that are there for Barnstable, under Barnstable,
Oh, okay.
those are all correct as of this date.
Okay, thank you.
I guess it's, yeah. Okay, so do you want to put it back on the agenda for another further discussion, or?
Yes.
Okay. And when would you like to put it back on the agenda? Next meeting?
Are we updating? Is that what you're trying to do?
After Paul does all the research to see where we are competitively with other towns.
I can do that by looking at those forms. The last time we talked about this, you saw that everywhere. But, you know, please don't misunderstand me. I mean, I know this is important. I'm not trying to be a pain in the ass. But the thing is that, let's say you look at Barnstable. Where do they get their numbers? You know, the numbers seem to come out of thin air. If somebody could say, well, Kelly Grant gets paid this amount of money, and in order to supplement her salary or augment the salary or whatever, we need to generate Y number of dollars from the Conservation Commission, that makes sense. But if it goes into the general fund, it goes into thin air. And then the next, oh, we still don't have enough money, let's raise fees again. So to me, it's just like this nebulous kind of a process that doesn't have any, like Tom mentioned, a concrete basis.
Yeah, the reality is we currently have a board of selectmen without any appetite whatsoever to raise taxes. So we're fighting that battle, and you know they're dying for more revenue. So
then,
just real.
Then let them raise the fees. Let them come up with the rationale. They basically would say, we need more money, so we're raising the fees. You know, and that would be their rationale. If that's accepted by everybody, it's accepted.
And you know,
why should it come from this board?
The reality is, if by their acceptance of our what we are presenting to them, they are in effect the ones raising the fees.
Well, they have to be, because they are the ones who agree to they are the only people who can raise fees or structure fees for the town. We can make our suggestion, but ultimately it is the town, it's the board of selectmen who say, yes, these are the things. And so to get around that whole taxation without representation issue that we started this whole country about. And
here's my thing.
Why it's there.
So let's say you raise a fee by $100, and the selectmen say, okay, that's a good idea. We'll raise this fee by $100. And I'm in the audience and I say, why? Are they going to be able to tell me why? Or it's just because they feel they need more money? Okay, if they say, well, we need more money, that's a reason. But is there another reason why it has to be $100? A lot of times what will they do? They'll say, Conservation Commission, why does it have to be more money? What are we going to say? Because we think you need more money. You know, it's just like, again, it's this nebulous process that isn't, you know, that isn't based on anything in my regard.
Excuse me, Paul, along with your argument, how about the electrical inspector? It costs him so much from town hall to your meter, right? And the fee is based upon how much time, expertise, and effort is required of him to take care of your electrical installation. Now that makes sense. How much money does it cost to have Kelly do something? That makes sense. That's concrete.
But that's going to be less than what she actually. So if I'm just saying, I'm pulling numbers out of my head, but say it's $50 an hour, and she invests 4 hours in a notice of intent, which she probably does easily, and then some. That's saying that the notice of intent is worth $200.
Yep.
Okay, I don't know. She probably puts more time in than what.
Then it should be $250.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
On the time she puts in, on the average.
You can look at it that way.
Yeah.
But you know, at the same time, you have to realize that the amount that's being charged is probably not. It does not fully reflect the amount of time that she puts into it.
But here to me is the problem. Okay, and I apologize to everybody for you know, prolonging this. You're getting paid as the Conservation Commission agent or the electrical inspector or whatever. You're getting paid a salary. Okay, if you weren't being paid a salary, you were being paid by the hour. Okay, like, let's say an electrician, when the electrician came to your house, the job's gonna take 4 hours, it's gonna cost $400. Okay, I understand that. But when you're already being paid by the town, you have a contract, it's not hourly, it's a salary, okay? You can't mix apples and oranges in terms of, oh, it's gonna take me 4 hours to do this job. What difference does it make? You're being paid, okay? You're being paid to do the job. Now, if you fall short, if this job is going beyond what you can physically do in the time that you are committed to work, that's a different story. If we have to work overtime, then it's going to cost $100 an hour to do this work, and you're going to add it on to the salary. So saying what you're saying, I understand it, but it doesn't compute as far as I'm concerned. Okay, it doesn't work that way. You know, a couple of us worked in schools. I worked as a school principal. I worked a lot of hours. My salary didn't change. I didn't charge fees. Okay, Tom didn't. David didn't. You know, I mean, it just doesn't. It doesn't make sense.
Well, yes, you did. Your fees were the property taxes that everybody paid into it.
Yeah. Again, the taxes, exactly. So a fee
see,
is a
this
tax.
is the- so-
With all due respect to David, I understand you, but I think it's a tax, and it belongs with the selectmen. And all I say is there's no rationale for it. There's no explainable rationale for a fee. I had to pay a fee to reshingle my house of $50. I asked the building inspector why. He said that just because that's what you have to do. Nobody came to my house. Nobody looked at the house, et cetera, et cetera. Okay.
So your driver's license should be free?
No, I don't want to talk about that. That's silly.
Your clam license should be free? Why did you pull $200 out of your hat when you fined one person, but
I think
you
you're getting
pulled
off the
$300 out of your hat
You're getting
for
off
somebody
the topic.
else?
You're getting off the topic, and
No, I'm saying
I don't have anything else. If I pulled it off my hat, then you should have said you're pulling that out of your hat, so that wouldn't be recommended. Don't go there. That's not what I'm talking about.
I am going to go there because that's exactly what you're doing. You did the exact same thing. You pulled $200 out of your hat because you said, okay, first you're going to go with 100, then you're going to go with 200, then you're going to go with 300.
I don't know where you're coming from now. I'm just saying I have a problem with fees. I have a
But
problem.
you had no problems charging one person one fee.
I don't know what that has to do with anything. Tell you the truth.
You're talking to me about, you're sitting there telling me it's like, oh, the fees are taxes, the fees are taxes, the fees are taxes. But then you sit there and you have no problem sitting there saying, okay, well, for this person, I'm going to charge.
That was a violation. What's wrong with you? That was a violation.
It doesn't matter if it's a violation or not.
If I'm speeding down the road and the cop pulls me over, I get a ticket. It's a violation of the law. I have to pay a fine. Okay, that's a different story. That doesn't make any sense.
That's right, but that's fine.
I'm done. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
I don't care if you don't like it, but here's what it is. That's fine is determined by a judge.
So as a
that's the difference. You are not a judge, but you are still creating that fine.
That has nothing to do with a fee, though. There's nothing.
It's just a fee.
Is this
that fine is just a fee?
You're kind of wearing me out. It has nothing to do with what we talked about in terms of violation.
Oh, you've been wearing me out for the entire time here, but I try and.
Should I be quiet then and just go along with you? Should I not
No.
express myself in terms of what I think? I think the fee schedule is fine, okay, but with rationale. Don't you understand that? Is that?
I understand your point of view.
Okay, thank you. Enough.
My point of view is that you need to raise the fee. Don't
Then
you understand that?
Yeah, but you know what? I'd like to know why.
I just told you, it takes time and effort to put that into.
You're getting paid already. Okay, what you say doesn't make very much sense. I'm sorry.
Well, join the club then, Paul. Join the club.
Talk about it another time. Can we please talk about it another time?
I'm done.
Anybody else's time. If I express myself and I tell you what I think, and I get into this kind of back and forth, please, it's not productive. I told you what I thought. I tried to give you examples. That's it. You don't like it, that's fine. I hear things from other people. I don't agree. I don't go harangue them. Okay? So stop.
I'm not, Paul.
Please
I think
stop.
we're just going to disagree with this one.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay. If you want to bring it back, you can bring it back, but I don't foresee I don't see any reason why, because I don't think that the commission has any one direction on this.
Okay.
I guess another alternative is that we could just send a note to the Board of Selectmen asking if they wanted to look at reviewing the fees. If they don't want to, then we leave it at that. If they do, then we could look into it further as to what fee levels are and could be, and just offer them a recommendation. Don't know if that would be.
Well, I do think we need to give them a reason why we want them to look at the fees. I don't think, if you just say, would you look at the fees, they'll say no.
No, whether they want us to look at the fees and provide them with some recommendations, because that could end the discussion early on, so we don't need to put in any justification. If
But I
there,
think we,
if
but I
there's
think
no
we need,
appetite to review fees, then maybe then we wouldn't need to look at it any further.
I'm curious.
I'm just offering a.
Yeah, I understand. I'm curious of two things. One is, have other departments raised fees in the last 2 years? And I don't know. And two is, if we do that, Kelly, which is a good idea, I do think we need to say to them, here's why we would like you to look at the fees, and we would be happy to recommend it to you.
Okay, and I can ask around on both of those, like whether
Yeah.
whether other towns, I mean, other departments have reviewed fees and on what basis, just so we have a bit more information. Okay, I'll come back to you on that then. And then we just have the minutes on the agenda from May 21st. I haven't reviewed them myself, but
I just have one comment on the minutes.
Kelly, I have a big question, if I might. You have referred to these minutes as May 21st. It's May 7th that came on the.
yeah, you're right. I'm just looking at the one I printed out, and you're right. The dates are different. So let's so maybe. Would you want to just continue that and we'll look at it with the right date on the agenda at the next meeting, or do you want to go ahead and make that correction? And I can just put it on the next agenda if you prefer with the correct date, and then we can review it then, or we can make a correction on here.
It doesn't make any difference to me, whichever is best for you, but I'll tell you, there is a major concern about these minutes. And I am willing to make a motion to approve the minutes of May 7th after each commissioner reviews all items to which they have contributed and they submit their suggestions or clarifications or rephrasing to the conservation administrator. For example, if you turn to page 8, it talks about Mr. Chismet's comments in regard to Commissioner Bishop's statements, reminding the commission members that Mr. Chismet has not adhered to the Yarmouth bylaws in the past, and close monitoring of the project is suggested. Now that is critical, I think, to the fact that the statement is made that Mr. Chismet took exception to Mr. Bishop's comments. There's pieces of this minutes that are missing.
Okay, well, how about we'll put them on the next agenda, and I will do a review of them because I haven't reviewed them myself since I received them this week. So let's move them to the next agenda with the correct date, and I will do a review and go back and watch the video to make sure that they're accurate.
Kelly, can I just make one comment?
Sure.
Just on number 2 on 55 Sullivan Street, it says the current deck is 12 feet from the house towards the pond and 16 feet along the house. She's seeking to expand the deck 4 feet longer, doubling the size of the deck. Well, I was an English teacher, but I think 4 feet is not doubling the size of the deck. And I just wanted to point that out.
Okay.
I think that's prevalent all through the minutes.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, it sounds like the best thing is we just table those, and I'll go back and go through them before we approve them.
Thank you.
Thank you. And there are no other staff updates other than I just wanted to bring to your attention the drive-in site, because we've had a lot of very rapid discussions of late about the use of the drive-in site through the summer, and it is a riverfront area property. So I just wanted to bring it up in case you had any concerns that you wanted included. I'm not requiring any formal permitting because it's a temporary use of the property on a previously disturbed site. There's no construction, but it will be used as a drive-in movie theater for the summer by the looks of it. I've been involved in discussions with the vendor and are requiring some safety precautions around use of generators and refueling of generators and spill kits on site for obviously vehicles and for generators. But I just wanted to see if anyone had any other concerns that they wanted included. We'll be drafting the license agreement with any inputs that are required. Nope, everyone's good?
Excited.
Okay, excellent. Okay, that is all I have.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Kelly, you want to call the roll?
Or Bishop,
Aye.
Durkin,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Lawrence. Oh, she's gone. Hoops,
Aye.
Huggins.
Aye.
Mulhern. She's muted. Take that as an aye. So motion carries 6-0. Yeah, 6-0. Okay,
All right, thank you, everybody.
thank you,
Aye.
everyone.
Good night, all.
Good night, everybody.